In 1973, American diplomats sat across from Saudi oil ministers and designed a system that would reshape global finance for half a century. The deal was elegant in its simplicity. Saudi Arabia would price oil exclusively in US dollars. In return, America would provide military protection and arms. The Saudis would take those oil revenues and recycle them back into the American economy. Treasury bonds, real estate, stock markets. The loop was closed. The petrodollar was born. For 50 years, this system functioned exactly as designed. Gulf countries pumped oil. The world paid in dollars. Those dollars flowed back to America. U.S. deficits got financed. The cycle reinforced itself. And the assumption underlying everything was stability. The Gulf would remain stable. Oil would keep flowing, and the dollars would keep recycling. Nobody asked what happens when recycling becomes weaponized. In 2026, that question is being answered in real time. The financial loop that sustained American power for half a century is now financing a war that might destroy it. Because the petrodollar recycling system didn't just survive into 2026, it evolved. And what it evolved into is something darker than its architects imagined. Gulf money doesn't just flow into passive investments anymore. It flows into active policy manipulation. And the current war with Iran is the clearest proof yet. Here's what most people miss about the Iran conflict. This isn't a military miscalculation. It's a financial transaction. Saudi Arabia invested $2 billion into Jared Kushner's private equity fund. Jared Kushner is Trump's son-in-law. That's not an investment, that's a bribe. And the service being purchased is American military action against Iran. If you're watching this war unfold and wondering why the strategy seems rational, stay with me. Because once you see the financial incentives, the irrationality disappears. The war makes perfect sense, just not for America. The Saudis view Iran as an existential threat. They want regime change. They've wanted it for decades, but they can't achieve it themselves. So they're paying America to do it. The $2 billion to Kushner is just the visible part. Miriam Adelson, an Israeli-American billionaire, pledged $250 million for Trump's potential third-term campaign. Another bribe. Another service purchased. Israel wants Iran neutralized, so they're financing the leader who will deliver it. This is petrodollar recycling in 2026. Not passive bond purchases, active policy buying. The Gulf recycles oil revenues into American wars. And American leaders optimize for personal gain, not national interest. Trump personally benefits from this war, even if America doesn't. He gets billions in financial backing. He gets political support for staying in power. He gets emergency war powers if things escalate. The incentive structure guarantees escalation. Now look at what Iran is doing. They understand the system better than most Americans. They're not primarily targeting U.S. military bases. They're targeting the financial infrastructure that sustains the petrodollar loop. The Gulf Cooperation Council countries, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, Bahrain, these nations are the linchpin. They sell oil, they get dollars, they recycle those dollars into the American economy, break that loop, and the entire structure collapses. Iran's strategy is surgical. They're hitting desalination plants. 60% of the Gulf's water comes from these facilities. Destroy the plant in Riyadh, and 10 million people run out of drinking water in 2 weeks. They're hitting oil infrastructure, refineries, pipelines, export terminals, and they're proving that the defense systems protecting these assets don't work. A $2,000 drone destroys a $1.1 billion radar. An Iranian missile evades 11 American interceptors, costing $33 million combined. The cost asymmetry is devastating. Iran spends $100,000 per missile. America spends $11 million to $33 million trying to stop it. And most interceptors miss anyway. If Iran launches 1,000 missiles, the U.S. burns through $11 billion to $33 billion in defensive munitions. Meanwhile, Iran spent $100 million. The economics favor the attacker. And America is $33 trillion in debt. Every interceptor fired adds to a deficit that Gulf money used to finance. But here's the trap. If the Gulf gets destroyed, the recycling stops. The Saudis can't buy Treasury bonds if their economy is shattered. The UAE can't fund AI data centers if their infrastructure is rubble. The petrodollar loop depends on Gulf stability. And Iran is systematically dismantling that stability. Not with rhetoric, with hypersonic missiles that American systems can't intercept. The current war is proving something that should terrify policymakers. The petrodollar system has a single point of failure, the Strait of Hormuz. 20% of global oil flows through that 21-mile choke point. For 50 years, American military dominance kept it open. In 2026, Iran is demonstrating that dominance no longer guarantees access. They've attacked tankers. They've blockaded shipping. They've shown that the naval forces protecting the strait are vulnerable to weapons costing a fraction of their value. Every day the strait stays contested, oil prices climb. Every price increase feeds inflation. Every inflation spike forces central banks into impossible choices. Raise rates and crush growth. Hold steady and watch purchasing power erode. Either path weakens the economy. and a weakened economy can't sustain the debt load required to finance the war. The loop tightens. This creates a financial death spiral. The war costs money. That money used to come from the Gulf. But the Gulf is under attack, so financing dries up. Meanwhile, the war intensifies. Because Trump's personal incentives require escalation. The Saudis paid $2 billion for regime change. If Trump doesn't deliver, the money stops. If the money stops, his political backing collapses. So he escalates. More strikes, more deployments, more cost. And every escalation pushes the Gulf closer to collapse. Because Iran isn't fighting a conventional war. They're fighting a financial war. They're not trying to defeat the American military. They're trying to break the economic loop that finances American power, destroy the Gulf's ability to recycle petrodollars, force America to choose between abandoning the region or spending trillions it doesn't have on a ground war it can't win. History shows this pattern before. The Soviet Union collapsed not because it lost militarily. It collapsed because the cost of maintaining empire exceeded the revenue it generated. Afghanistan bled Soviet finances for a decade. The arms race with America drained resources. Eventually, the system couldn't sustain itself. The USSR dissolved, not from defeat, from insolvency. America is running the same script in reverse. The Soviet Union tried to match American spending and went bankrupt. America is trying to defend a global system, while rivals exploit asymmetric cost advantages. Iran spends $200,000 per Fath-2 missile. America spends $13 billion per aircraft carrier. The carrier is vulnerable, the missile is expendable, and the financial math doesn't work. The petrodollar system was designed to give America infinite financing capacity. As long as the Gulf recycled oil revenues into U.S. assets, deficits didn't matter. The money always came back. But that only works if the Gulf remains functional. If the Gulf collapses, the loop breaks. And if the loop breaks, American deficit financing becomes unsustainable. Treasury auctions fail. Interest rates spike. The debt spiral accelerates. This is why the current war isn't just geopolitical, it's existential for the dollar system. The mechanism that replaced Bretton Woods after 1971 is under direct attack. Not by another superpower, by a regional adversary using cheap weapons to destroy expensive infrastructure, and the defender can't afford to lose what the attacker can afford to destroy. Look at the incentives driving this war. Trump gets $2 billion from Saudi Arabia. He gets $250 million from Israeli backers. He gets emergency powers if the war goes badly. The Saudis get American military action against their rival. Israel gets Iranian nuclear facilities bombed. Weapon manufacturers get multi-billion-dollar contracts. Everyone directly involved profits, except the American public and the Gulf populations being bombed. The soldiers fighting don't profit. The taxpayers funding it don't profit. The civilians losing water and electricity don't profit. But the decision makers do, and decision makers optimize for their own incentives. This is why rational analysis of whether the war benefits America misses the point. The war doesn't need to benefit America. It needs to benefit the people deciding to wage it. And it does. This is petrodollar recycling in its final form. Gulf oil money finances American leaders to destroy Gulf infrastructure. The loop that sustained the system for 50 years is now consuming itself. The Saudis pay Trump to attack Iran. Iran attacks Saudi infrastructure. Saudi financing capacity degrades. American deficits grow. The cycle tightens. And there's no off-ramp. Trump can't back down without losing his financial backers. The Saudis can't stop paying without losing American protection. Iran can't stop attacking without losing strategic advantage. Every party is locked into escalation. And the system designed to create stability is now guaranteeing chaos. The original petrodollar deal in 1973 assumed mutual benefit. America provides security. The Gulf provides financing. Both sides prosper. In 2026, the deal has inverted. America provides war. The Gulf provides targets. Both sides bleed. And the financing loop that was supposed to be perpetual is breaking in real time. This is what happens when financial architecture outlives its original purpose. The petrodollar was designed for a world where American military dominance was unquestioned, where oil flowed freely. In 2026, none of those assumptions hold, but the system keeps running because the incentives to maintain it are personal and immediate, while the costs are national and delayed. The lesson here isn't that leaders are evil, it's that systems create incentives, and people follow incentives. Trump isn't uniquely corrupt for taking Saudi money. He's responding rationally to the structure in front of him. The Saudis aren't uniquely reckless for funding war. They're trying to survive an existential threat. Iran isn't uniquely aggressive for attacking infrastructure. They're using asymmetric advantages against a stronger opponent. Everyone is optimizing. The problem is they're optimizing for incompatible goals within a system that can't accommodate all of them simultaneously. And when systems reach that point, they don't reform gradually. They break suddenly. The petrodollar loop sustained 50 years of American hegemony. It's breaking in 50 days of Iranian missile strikes. If this changed how you see the current war, share it. Because what's happening in the Gulf isn't just military conflict, it's the financial engine of American power destroying itself. And most people won't understand why until the loop is already broken.